me and Pat were especially bad, especially towards Robert. That poor kid. So one year...
Oh, who's oldest? You got to remind me.
So I'm the oldest. Pat is the middle child, and Robert is the youngest of the boys. And I remember one Christmas, my brother Robert gets this turbo train. And it's kind of like a regular train set, only it's like if you can imagine, like Amtrak. So this thing just hauls ass on this track.
Mm-hmm.
So me and Pat shared a bedroom upstairs in our house. We're on the second story. And I don't think Robert had a room up there. I think his was downstairs. But me and Pat got a hold of his turbo train. And we set it up, except the end of the track went out the window. And so we set the train up, and we only got one run.
I suppose. Destroyed the train.
Who would have thought?
Yeah. Well, that's what Robert gets. But, so here we are.
Yep.
The Dropouts.
Yeah.
I'm Mike.
I'm Jamie.
Hey, I'm Marissa.
And so the last few weeks, we've talked about some cases that involve Massachusetts.
The dumpster fire state of the United States right now.
Yeah, it's bad. But one thing I wanted to point out before we get going on this topic is we're not anti-law enforcement.
No.
I'm ex-law enforcement. A lot of my friends are in law enforcement. We support law enforcement. But I don't support like corruption and laziness, and a lot of the law enforcement we're going to talk about today is probably one of those two. Or they just don't give a shit. I guess I really don't know what their problem is, but I did notice that in some of the cases that we've already talked about, some of these law enforcement officers are in every one of them.
Right. There's common players in a lot of these cases.
And I thought maybe Massachusetts was bigger than that, but maybe I can only assume that maybe the area of these cases is close enough. It's maybe in the same division. I mean, I really don't know, but there was a lot of, all these cases are fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, of course, the Karen Reed case.
Yep.
We discussed that one.
Yep.
There's the Sandra Birchmore case. We've discussed that one.
Yep.
We haven't talked about Brian Walshe yet.
Right.
But
That's
I assume
recent.
we will be.
Yeah, I wrote some notes on that one today.
There's another case involving the shooting of a police officer, and that was
Kelly Fitzsimmons.
Kelly Fitzsimmons.
Kelsey
Fitzsimmons.
Fitzsimmons.
And I was thinking there was something else that had happened over there recently.
Well, there was one prior to the John O'Keefe murder, which there was an actual body found across or on his lawn or near his lawn by a kid by the name of Craig. I think it's Craig Casey is his name. But I didn't do a lot of research into that one. But that was a kind of a suspicious case also.
Something that I also found in common with at least the Karen Reed, the Brian Walshe, and the Sandra Birchmore case is the FBI ultimately has gotten involved in every single one of them.
Really?
So how can you do such a piss poor job that the FBI goes, God damn it.
Here we go again.
Every time something serious happens in that area, they just as well call them in to begin with because it's bad.
Yeah.
So you just want to start with are we going to take a swipe at this broad, or are we going to go case by case, or?
Well, it's up to you. What do you want to talk about first?
Well, I guess we just as well start with the Karen Reed case because that was the first one we talked about anyway. I don't know that these cases are in chronological order. I assume that I'm guessing they will be because...
Yeah. Well, the Brian Walshe case is actually going to go to trial in October.
Yeah.
They're doing just like the pre-trial stuff right now.
So give a little
Their
story on that
interviews.
one, since we have not discussed Brian Walsh.
On the Brian Walsh?
Brian
Yes.
Walsh. Okay. You looked him up at all?
I have a little bit.
So, Brian Walsh is theoretically allegedly accused of murdering his wife, Anna, back in beginning of January of 2023. And they have not found her body. That's one of the problems with this case is they don't have a body, but there's overwhelming evidence that he did murder her. The problem with this case is that the common players are Sergeant Yuri Buchanan, Michael Proctor, some of those investigators of the Boston police that were involved in the Karen Reed case. They did not follow or abide by some of the laws or the search warrants that they were in agreement with or contracted with, and so because they botched it, there's chances that he might walk.
A fruits of the poisonous tree type of a deal. They went outside the scope of the search warrant.
Yeah, that's a synopsis of it. But
And we're not talking about rookie cops. So we're talking about law enforcement the law enforcement officers that are investigating these cases are sergeants, lieutenants, or they're going to be troopers or law enforcement that has years of experience. None of these guys are rookies.
yeah, and getting paid very well to do their job that they cannot do very well.
And it seems to be the same stupid shit
Yeah.
over and over and over.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a part that irritates me because, I was never an investigator. I was basically just a general law enforcement officer because that's kind of what we have in the small area that I worked. And so you have a department with 4 or 5 people. Everybody does traffic. Everybody does death investigations. Everybody does accident investigations. You don't have, detectives to come out. And so none of us were necessarily experts in a certain area. We might spend a little more time in a certain area. I will say most of that's going to involve traffic, so whether it be drug interdiction stops or things like that. But these guys, a lot of them are detectives. Mm-hmm. That's kind of their primary function, or supervisors. And they do, let's say the Karen Reed case. So they do a shitty, piss-poor job of investigating that. They get caught on it, or at least it's made public. So even if they claim that they didn't, fuck anything up, they do the same thing or the same sort of crap in the very next big case that they work. And they start to screw that one up. Another case comes along, and they do the same thing over and over.
Yeah. So, it's just a shit show. Well, and that's what the lawyer is arguing now is that, Michael Proctor was already being investigated by the FBI with the shoddy work that he did in the Karen Reed case. And so, how many other cases are going to get thrown out because this guy is basically a dirty cop,
So in the second trial of Karen Reed, was he called to testify in the second one?
No.
No. And did you know that he's going to be excluded from the Brian Walsh case as well? I read that today.
Yeah, I think I heard that. Yep.
So, but there's some other common names if we're going to let's just talk Brian Walsh and Karen Reed. So you've got Michael Proctor. You've got Yuri Buchanan. Is that how they pronounce it?
It's either Buchanan or Buchanan, I think is how they pronounce it. One of the two.
And then
but not Bukaki.
Not Bukaki. I have heard that. But there is another name that I noticed when I was going through some witness lists today that popped up, and that's a John Fanning.
And I think also in the Nick Garino, he's another one that was a common name too.
So the very same list of guys in two big cases. Only one's been fired, one's been reassigned, and I guess the John Fanning, I don't know. But Michael Proctor, of course, we know he got fired because, I'm assuming, because of the text messages and the way he handled himself in the Karen Reed case. I don't think it had anything. The thing that's really bad is I don't think he got fired because he did a shitty job with his investigation. He got fired because it went public about the text messages.
Yeah, because he was texting his friends about a case, and I think that's why, because he wasn't supposed to be talking about a case to private friends, right?
Well, that's probably what they're going to say.
Yeah.
And that Yuri Buhenik, or however the hell it's pronounced, he was reassigned for the same reason. And he was reassigned to some sort of a training division. And he was I believe he was a sergeant. So I'm guessing he was involved, or he was a supervisor of these investigators. And of course, he also was working the Brian Walshe case and was maybe involved with helping to screw that one up too. So
Yeah. So, yeah. You want to go on about these fellas, or do you want to go into what he did with the Brian Walshe case?
with Michael Proctor or with
With
Buchanan?
Buchanan, yeah.
Well, we can talk about this Buchanan and what he did with the Brian Walshe case.
You want the backstory about Brian Walshe and what's going on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Brian Walshe, we got to start with who he's accused of murdering, which was his wife, Anna Walshe. So Anna is actually not from the United States. She's from Serbia. She comes to the United States, I think in 2005, 2008, somewhere around there, and she becomes a U.S. citizen. Okay. She meets Brian Walshe, and they are, I think, in 2014. It says somewhere 2015, 2016, they get married.
16.
Okay. The backstory on Brian Walshe is I feel like he's portraying to be somebody he's not. Anna she comes to the United States and she's in the hospitality industry. So she's working for hotels. So I don't really know what the hospitality industry all entails, or they didn't really elaborate on that. But you can speculate maybe what she's doing. I don't know. But I feel like she's probably drawn to men who are wealthy or high society type individuals. So she's starts dating Brian Walshe. He ends up getting in trouble for art fraud. He ends up selling fraudulent art pieces, and he gets indicted for selling fraudulent art, whatever you call that.
In 21, he pled guilty in federal court on 3 charges of fraud relating to selling counterfeit Andy Warhol works.
See, and I thought I had read, and maybe I misread this, that was how he and his wife had met, that maybe he had sold artwork for her and her first husband. But maybe I'm mistaken with that.
That I don't know. That could be. I didn't go that deep. But it says that he portrayed himself as affluent and charming and charismatic, and I think portrayed himself as somebody that he maybe wasn't. Somehow got a hold of authentic Andy Warhol paintings from a friend or an acquaintance and offered to sell these paintings for this person on eBay, believe it or not. He was kind of negotiating a price with the buyer of these paintings on eBay, and ended up selling them privately for, I think, $80,000, something like that. Well, then it turns out that the buyer of these paintings did some research on them and found out they were fake. They didn't have the authenticity stamp and different things on them that he said they were fake. Anyway, turns out that Brian had done this before with these same paintings. Like this was a scam he was doing. He had these Andy Warhols, and then he was selling replicas of them. So that was his scam. So already there, he's got this background of, he's a con artist, basically. Well, this originally happened in 2016, and that's when some turbulence started happening with Anna and him and their marriage, and things kind of started going sideways. She ends up getting a real estate job, and she starts traveling to Washington, D.C. So she's now a real estate agent, and she starts traveling more. So her time is kind of split between Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. Brian was then indicted and charged with 37 months in prison, I believe, and a fine of $475,000. He's under house arrest, and he's got his ankle bracelet on. Within house arrest, he can leave at certain times. For example, when Anna's working, he can leave to take the kids to and from school, that kind of thing. So he has some leeway with his ankle bracelet. Okay, so in 2022, he gets the inkling that Anna's having an affair. And so, with her traveling to Washington, D.C. and back, he has his mom in December of 2022 hire a private investigator to follow Anna in Washington, D.C. to catch her having an affair. They're supposed to have a New Year's Eve party and with some of their friends back in Massachusetts. They do that. They're up until wee hours in the morning. And July 1st of 2023 was the last Anna was ever heard of. She's gone. She's missing. Brian gets hold of the babysitter that was watching their 3 boys and says, Anna had to go back to D.C. for emergency for work. I need to go check on my mom, which I don't remember what town she lived in, and to get the babysitter to keep the kids longer. And that's when Brian goes on a shopping spree to Lowe's or Home Depot or some hardware store, and he's getting all kinds of different items that would be very suspicious if one were to murder someone. Buckets, hydrogen peroxide, a hatchet, zip ties, all kinds of different things. He's later seen on surveillance in dumpsters, dumping stuff into dumpsters, 2 parts of town, this, that, and the other, like evidence upon evidence upon evidence. The problem is that the search warrant was for his phone and his son's iPad, to where he had been making Google searches on this son's iPad about how long before a body starts to smell, what's the best way to dispose of a body, what's the best way to get rid of a body, all these incriminating searches, Google searches on his 6-year-old's iPad. This is where Buchanan comes into play, is that when he's serving these search warrants, he also gets a phone from one of the other kids, I believe, and searches that phone. And then also he goes beyond the dates that he was supposed to search. He was supposed to search from December 25th through January 1st for text communications between Brian and Anna, which they did way more than that. They were looking at all the Google searches. They were using GPS They were doing all kinds of things out of the scope of that search warrant. So for that reason, that's why this case is probably going to get thrown out, and a murderer will walk free.
You know what's funny about that is you would think if you're going to write a search warrant that has to do with going through electronic devices, whether it be computers, phones, whatnot, you would try and include as many things as you could in the search warrant. I can't imagine that I would have ever written a search warrant if I had somebody's phone, computer, iPad, whatever electronic device it was, and limit it to looking for a text message. So, I mean, that's just, I don't get it.
I don't either.
It's like stupidity. And beyond, so we can get beyond some stupid stuff. So that's at, I can't even pronounce his name. I'm just going to call him Yuri Buchanek. Yeah. And who was the other one involved? Michael Proctor. Of course. I don't know what his involvement in that case was.
And I don't really either, because the most I saw was Buchanek, because they actually did that pretrial interview with him on the stand, and the exact moment when he's caught screwing up, I mean, he is just sitting there nervous and twitching his thumbs and pulling at his collar, and it's a mess.
Well, and I thought that he kind of acted like an ass on the stand in the Karen Reed trial.
Totally.
He
was a complete ass. This one, he didn't act so defensive and like refusing to answer questions. He answered them, but he acted very nervous, and you could tell the moment he knew he screwed up.
So a lot of, so when we're talking Proctor, Buchanek, Tully's another name. He was also reassigned, and that was after the Karen Reed case, or during the Karen Reed case. John Fanning. Now, I don't know, I shouldn't point any fingers at John Fanning, and another name I have listed is this Matthew Doon. All of those names are Massachusetts State Police. Mm-hmm. Only 3 of those individuals are ones that it was kind of pointed out that they just did what I would consider just total shit work. Like, almost like they were lazy, or, I mean, I really don't know what the hell is going through their head. But,
well, you have to think that stuff, that they have probably not done anything right from the get-go.
Well, you got to wonder. It's just these cases are on a national level, so as they go to court and they get a lot of press coverage, and they also have attorneys that are maybe high profile. And of course, I think the Karen Reed case, because of the national attention that it got, it kind of made people start looking at maybe some of these other cases that are going on in Massachusetts.
They're going to be looked at under a microscope from now on.
But I want to get into some corruption type stuff now. And so I know I've mentioned it before, where they talk about like the brotherhood within law enforcement. Mm-hmm. And one thing that pisses me off is the brotherhood in law enforcement should be all of the good cops. And there's way more good cops than bad cops. I probably should point that out.
Sure.
And the brotherhood should be the good cops forcing these corrupt cops and cops that are lazy and do shitty work, forcing them to take responsibility, or,
Yeah, and basically do better.
Do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, or make sure they're removed.
Be accountable.
But it seems like the brotherhood, what it actually refers to, is where these corrupt cops kind of cover for each other. Mm-hmm. So they basically kind of run amok, do what they want, do stupid shit, do illegal stuff, maybe even get involved in crime themselves, and they don't worry about it because they know that their brothers in law enforcement are going to cover for them. And I think this actually starts at higher levels.
Sure.
You know, we're talking department heads and supervisors, because you're not going to have a bunch of rookie cops out there doing this shit. And
Well, yeah, it's got to leak down from somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to start, because my experience is young rookie cops are probably more likely to be honest and want to do good because they're new, and that's probably why they got into law enforcement in the first place.
Sure. And yeah, they're going to be the narcs who tell on the other cops that they didn't quite do something right.
Sure.
And then,
Well, most of their intentions are good.
yeah.
But corruption breeds corruption, so you have these corrupt guys at the top, and let's say, I'm just going to make up an example. So you have a big cop party. And a lot of times, cops kind of hang out with other cops because it is difficult when you're in law enforcement to just go hang out at the bar with a bunch of civilians, because at least my experience, people there know you're law enforcement and you're the only law enforcement officer there, and you're drinking in the bar, and people kind of screw with you. So cops, when they go out in their party, are kind of in their friend groups. That's who they hang out with. Mm-hmm. So you would have probably some younger law enforcement officers, and they go to some sort of a get-together. And when they start hanging around with these, whether it be supervisors or law enforcement that has more experience, it's probably when they're introduced to maybe some shady shit. And these older cops would maybe tell them at that point, well, don't worry about it. I got your back. And as soon as they screw up or they do some shady shit, then they're stuck. Because if they don't now toe the same shady, corrupt line that, these other shitty cops are involved with, then these higher ups will just point them out, right, throw them under the bus, and they're out. So they kind of hold it over their head. So in the case of Boston, and I think Boston's bad. I think Boston's real bad.
Yeah.
Boston is where...
Well, it's kind of the case of Kelly Dever now.
Yeah.
What's going on with her?
Yeah, and also in Boston is that's where Brian Albert was a sergeant.
Right.
That's also where John O'Keefe, who was the victim in the Karen Reed trial, who will never know probably who actually killed him.
No.
But they're all part of the Boston Police Department, and I think that definitely starts at the top. And you mentioned actually the name I was going to get into. Maybe we'll watch some of the same videos. But Kelly Dever, at least with Boston, she started off with Canton.
Right, yep.
And then she went to the Boston Police Department. And she was maybe with the Boston Police Department for a year when the Karen Reed, I think the second trial is beginning to take place. And I don't think that she was even called as a witness in the first trial.
Nope.
So while she's on the stand, she testifies. Well, first, I want to point out that she was also a bitch on the stand. I don't know how else to put it. She was awful.
She acted like a spoiled brat.
Oh, terrible. She would have been better served a little advice for maybe young cops. If you're going to sit on the stand and you're going to testify, I would be as professional as I could to both the prosecutor and to the defense. There's no need to get shitty with them. And when her name was mispronounced, she was kind of snotty to the defense attorney about how he was pronouncing her name. And there's really just let him do it. Yeah. I probably wouldn't even bring it up.
No.
But she would just get shitty. And if I was just a juror or a citizen watching the case, and even as an ex-cop watching the case, the whole time I was watching, I cringed. Like, what an idiot.
I know.
Like, you're totally making yourself look...
Not only herself, but the whole police department.
Oh, yeah.
She made the whole police force look like a bunch of assholes.
But while she's on the stand, and she's being cross-examined, the defense brings up that she'd had a meeting with the police commissioner. So now I'm from a small department, and in small departments, it's not unusual to get called to the chief's office or to the sheriff's office because there's probably only 5 of you. But in a larger department where there's maybe 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 cops and you are a rookie, you are never going to be called to a commissioner's office or to the chief's office or to the sheriff's office because they have this long line, this long chain of command.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have your chiefs and your maybe your under chief, and you're going to have lieutenants and captains and sergeants. And that shit kind of goes down the ladder, and it also goes up the ladder.
Yep.
So if there's a problem with a patrol officer or a rookie, you're probably not even going to be addressed by maybe not even a captain or a lieutenant, much less the commissioner. It's probably going to be addressed by your immediate supervisor.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is, let's say that the captain hears about something shitty that an officer did. The captain's going to go to the lieutenant or the sergeant and say, you need to get your officer under control, or you need to discipline this officer in this manner. They're not going to have that officer come directly to their office. Mm-hmm. And we're skipping all this shit with in between lieutenants and captains and sergeants and whatnot. And she gets called to the lieutenant's office just to be told.
To the commissioner's
or
office.
Commissioner's
Yeah.
office. Just to be told, just do the right thing.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. Which
Wink,
should
wink.
never have to be told to an officer. Your whole fucking job is to do the right thing. You shouldn't have to be told that anyway. So if you get called to that, and let's say that those were the only words exchanged, I can almost guarantee you that if you get called in and you're standing there and the commissioner looks at you and just looks at you just straight in the face, doesn't wink or anything, and just says, do the right thing. That right thing is what he probably means is you better do right by law enforcement, by your brothers in blue, which means don't fuck this case up and taint it, make it look like law enforcement did something wrong.
Which is exactly what she tried to do.
Which is what yeah. So.
With her false memories.
With false memories, yes. So where it really got interesting is this commissioner, Cox is his name. Cox, he's a dick. But anyways, so he gets, he gets cornered by some reporters, and they ask him about this meeting he had with Deborah. And she does not like to be called Deaver, by the way.
Right. Don't make that mistake.
And according to him, he acts like he doesn't even know her.
Yep.
Who's that?
Yep. Totally denied anything about it. I don't know what you're talking about. What he said was, I didn't realize this person even had anything to do with the Karen Reed case. He can't even say her name. He called her this person.
Well, how could he not be familiar with the Karen Reed case? It was one of his cops that was dead in another one of his cops' front yards. I guarantee you he knew about it.
Yeah.
There ain't no fucking way he didn't.
Yeah.
So probably the only honest thing she said on the stand is that she had a meeting with the commissioner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
Yeah, she didn't even want to admit there were cameras in the Sally port.
No.
It was awful.
So that just makes me think that corruption starts at the very top, right with the commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
And if the commissioner's doing it, then there's probably people down the chain of command, and I'm not going to say all of them, but there's definitely some of them doing it all the way down, and it's going to bleed off to rookies like this Kelly Deaver.
Yep.
And then what?
Yep. Well, so there's another case in Boston that I feel like is highly suspicious of corruption also.
Which one's that?
That's this Kelly Fitzsimmons case.
That's the officer that was involved in the basically blue on blue.
Yep. So this is out of Andover, Massachusetts. And I'm not familiar how far away that is from Boston or where in the vicinity Andover is.
How far is Andover from Boston and Canton and Stoughton? And
So Kelly Fitzsimmons is a 28-year-old, obviously female officer out of North Andover, Massachusetts. And its backstory on her is she had a baby in February, and during the time she was pregnant, she was showing signs of prenatal depression, kind of like postpartum depression, but if this is depression that's happening within the pregnancy. And evidently she had shown some signs of, possibly making statements of wanting to harm herself or the baby. There's a statement from her fiance saying that she allegedly would hit her stomach while she was pregnant, things like that. Some of the stories that are coming out about this case and about her. She has this baby in February, and in March, she is hospitalized for postpartum depression. So this is a real thing. She gets her guns taken away, and during this time, she supposedly has gotten treatment and has been cleared by her physician, and she's later in June reinstated and gets her guns back. Only after she files a lawsuit against the police chief to get her guns back. 3 days prior to getting her guns back, this lawsuit mysteriously gets dropped. She drops the lawsuit, she gets her guns back, and then she's shot by her coworkers. What happens that night is that police officers are called to her home to deliver a
protection order, I believe.
Yeah, domestic violence protection order. I think they called it something else. I was trying to think of the name of it, but a protection order against her because her fiance had made a statement that said that he was in fear for his life, the baby's life, and she's scared that she was going to harm herself. And so they delivered this order to her, this protection order to her, 3 officers to her at her home. How it's described by the district attorney is that there was a armed outbreak, or I don't know how exactly he described it, but basically saying that there was a armed confrontation, and the officer that was a 20-year vet shot her in the chest. We don't know the details, whether she actually had a gun, whether the gun was in her house, whether, actually, we don't know anything yet. They haven't released any information about that yet, but she ends up getting shot in the chest and life-flighted to a hospital, I think in Boston, if I'm not mistaken, where she's still hospitalized and recovering, and I think they considered stable condition.
So how far is it?
About 32 minutes.
32 minutes. In Boston, Massachusetts isn't very big. I don't think.
No.
But it seems to be pretty corrupt.
Yeah.
So something else, and I think I mentioned this in a podcast within the last few weeks, is there is not a lot of body cams or in-car videos within their departments within that state.
That was going to be my question to Jamie is there's no body cam footage from this?
So when they were doing this presser, the district attorney from the county and the police chief were doing this press conference, and he was asked that about a reporter is, are you obtaining any kind of video footage? And the district attorney says, yeah, we're seeking out any video footage that is available. He turns to the chief of police and says, can you answer that? And he comes on very curt and says, no, the Andover Police Department does not utilize body cams at this time. And then steps away from the microphone just real quick. It was odd the way he answered it.
And that's crazy because people were using at least in-car video, and we didn't have cameras back on our uniforms, but I'm talking like 97. So I that's when I started. And we had in-car video, and then we wore a microphone, so we didn't actually have the camera on our uniform, but it was in the car, and we wore a mic that would transmit, when we were outside the vehicle. So even if you couldn't see us, you could at least hear us. And I don't understand why any department wouldn't want those, because they're kind of good for everybody. They're good for the citizens, because in a way there's a certain amount of accountability when the whole thing is on tape. So it does force what could be a cop that wants to do bad things. It could keep him from doing those because he knows he's being filmed. I liked it because I didn't have to worry about trying to take mental notes necessarily, or always be writing on my pad. So I could wear my mic, and we never had body cameras the whole time I was in, but I could at least turn my mic on, and then I didn't have to worry about trying to take notes or remember, what I said or what they said. Mm-hmm. Instead, I could focus my attention on my own safety, so I could watch whoever I was talking to and making sure they weren't going to pull out a gun or a knife or a weapon or take off running or start a fight. I could be conscious of my surroundings without staring at a notepad and, writing shit down. So I liked it for that. Also, it was great because if you went to court later on, you knew that your in-car video was going to be evidence. Mm-hmm. And so if you had somebody that you had arrested and they were in court, and the defendant is swearing, well, I never said that or I never did that, especially like on traffic stops, and it's on the fucking camera, then you don't even have to testify.
Yeah. Because
all they do is play the video in front of the judge or the jury, and you're like, well, there it is. Mm-hmm. Good enough.
Yep. Well, and so apparently this Andover is a pretty affluent town. Like they're probably not hurting for money. It's not like it's not the scum of the Massachusetts. It's pretty high society town apparently.
Well, how I look at
So why they wouldn't have body cams is beyond me.
It's beyond me, and I'm not so sure that they have them with does Boston Police Department? Maybe check on that, Marissa. But when I think of Massachusetts now, so Boston is clearly the big city in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. And just from the little bit that I've seen, I've already got kind of a sour taste in my mouth for the Boston Police Department. But that being probably the largest agency in the state, where probably I imagine that there's probably a lot of young cops that get their start with these smaller departments, whether it's Stoughton or Canton or wherever the case may be. And their hopes are probably that they get their training, they get some experience, and maybe later on in their career, they have a shot at the Boston Police Department, because that's probably where the money's at.
Yes, the Boston Police Department utilizes police body cameras. They have been implementing a body camera program since 2016. 2016.
Mm-hmm. So, but where was I at? So, but when you have a department that I'm beginning to think is corrupt from the top, probably down to the bottom. You're going to have these young cops that are also going to wind up being exposed to corruption.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, so here's where the story gets interesting on this.
I'm waiting.
Okay, so a little bit of backstory is that we don't know exactly what else was filed against this chief of police from Kelsey Fitzsimmons. You know, she filed this lawsuit against him, this complaint, and then the one getting to get her gun back, that one was dropped. However, this police chief, let's see, his name is Gray. His last name is Gray. So evidently in this police department, there's only 3 female officers compared to 40 male officers.
In Andover?
In Andover, 3 or 4. And this Gray, who is the chief of police, has had 3 lawsuits filed against him by these female officers. One of them's name was Kathy. I'm not for sure what her last name is.
I think I wrote that one down somewhere.
Yeah. Well, she filed a report and a complaint against him. Kathy Gerke, that's her name. And she's been a police officer for 17 years, and she files complaints against him for retaliation, sexual harassment, gender, what do you call it? Basically, she's gender discrimination. That's the word I want to say. Basically saying that the females in the department are getting mistreated. Not only by him as the chief of police, but also the rest of the officers. A lot of it has to do with their pay. She was promised a certain amount and then was never given. It was never given to her. They're playing pranks on all the women. Stupid fraternity house shit, they're barricading the elevators so that when they get off the elevator, they can't get off. They're moving their cars to 3 floor blocks away. Stupid stuff, but just to get under their skin. But it's on and on and on. Like, it's bully type stuff is what it is. Just to harass them.
I read part of that lawsuit. And one thing that I did see in there as well, a couple things. You mentioned the pay. So she had worked for another agency before she went to Andover. And I think she'd been with that other agency for like 8 years. And she was told that when she was going to be hired by Andover, that they would consider her years of public service when they were considering her pay. So they would basically pay her as an 8-year veteran and not a first year.
Yep.
And they had rewritten some sort of schedule, like a pay schedule, and they left that out. So basically it ripped her off of 8 years of service.
Yep.
And one of her other complaints was that the women's locker room was complete and total trash, to the point where there was so much mold that she said there was freaking mushrooms growing in there.
Oh, jeez.
So I think she saw that as well. How come the men's locker room is nice and clean? Ours is garbage. And like you said, I get a practical joke.
Right.
I mean, I've played some jokes on friends and other law enforcement officers, but I'm assuming, I would only be assuming that maybe more of them are played on the females than the males playing them on each other.
Yeah, and she had her and some of the other female officers had made complaints to I don't know if it's the town commissioner or whoever it would be, the city council or whatever it is. I don't know how they run things there, but basically the head of the city. nothing was ever done. But yeah, so it just makes you wonder if there's something else going on in the background with this Kelsey Fitzsimmons and the chief of police. I also found out that prior to the shooting, they were on a bachelorette weekend. Her and her fiance and family were in Maine for their bachelorette weekend. And evidently something happened and the two of them got into a fight, Kelsey and her fiance. And, I mean, we don't know what happened. We can only speculate. Who knows? But in his statement, he says that she punched him in the face 3 times. And then had said, I'm taking the baby away from you, and we're going far, far away. And basically made a threat to him that she was taking the baby. Now, who knows? We don't know why she hit him, if she did hit him. And, did he, I'm not saying this, but I'm not saying he did this, but did she do something? Did he do something to provoke her? We don't know. We have no idea.
No, this one's fairly new.
Oh, it's brand new, yeah.
So, but it's just one more thing involving law enforcement and the state of Massachusetts.
Right. And as they're showing this protection order and his statement, it talks about the incident that happened at this bachelorette weekend, but there's no date on the actual protection order. So then it makes you think, okay, did they write the protection order after the fact? Like, I don't know. It's just, it makes you wonder, like, is everything going to be done by the book?
So here's the problem they're going to have in Massachusetts now, is everybody's going to question everything.
Yes.
So
Yep.
Once you kind of introduce this reputation for being corrupt or shady practices, then anytime anything happens, it's just going to cause you problems. Mm-hmm. So, and that's why I bring up, they've had 3 big cases in the last, 4 years in Massachusetts. And ultimately the FBI has to get involved in every single one of them. I can't imagine working for an agency where every time you begin the investigation, the FBI has to finish it.
Right. Well, so another rumor is that this Kelsey was a witness to a murder within the police department, the police academy. There's an individual by the name of Enrique Delgado Garcia who was in the police academy, and he was beaten to death during a police fight night, whatever that may be. And supposedly, Kelsey was a witness to this accidental murder of this Enrique Delgado Garcia.
Wait, are you suggesting that there was some sort of a fight within law enforcement in Massachusetts where a law enforcement officer got killed? That's weird.
Weird.
Huh.
So like Fight Club? Is that?
That's what they said, that this kid in the police academy was beaten to death during the police fight night.
Jesus.
Whatever the fight night is. So this is just getting started. We're going to have to dig into this one and figure out what's going on and look a little. I just read this before I came to record, and we're going to have to look into this death of this Enrique Garcia.
I don't know why, but I was picturing being whether it be a Boston, a law enforcement officer in Massachusetts who's wondering why, or probably feels like they're maybe being picked on. And so it just popped into my head. I don't know why, but the clip from the movie Liar Liar, where Jim Carrey's in the courtroom and he yells, "Quit breaking the law!" Well, Well, goddamn. Quit doing stupid shit and people quit looking at you.
Yeah, so, I don't know. We're dealing with now a police officer who was shot by her own team, and they're questioning if she's really having this mental health crisis. She's got postpartum depression. Was it really necessary to shoot her?
Well, I wonder...
I know.
Did I see right that maybe another law enforcement officer was also shot?
No.
You sure?
In that situation?
Yeah, I was thinking there was a 20-year vet that...
No, he was the one that shot her.
He's the one that shot her.
Yeah, the 20-year vet shot her.
I thought that there was gunfire maybe exchanged, and
there was no gunfire exchange. And that's what,
Okay.
on this protection order, the way the DA described it is that they were supposed to obtain any weapons in the home if she had any. So he did not say whether she had a weapon in her home, if she had a weapon in her hand. None of those details are out yet. So we don't really know why he shot her. It's not said yet whether she had a gun in her hand or not. Automatically you would assume, okay, she had a firearm and she's pointing it at him. That's why he shoots her. But none of those details are out yet.
And I wonder who's going to end up ultimately investigating this, because, I mean, the Massachusetts State Police doesn't exactly have a stellar record for solving cases.
And I'm not accusing, but if you have to wonder, you do have to wonder all of this corruption going on, and if there was beef between her and the chief of police and this stuff going on, and they're supposed to obtain her firearms, what if she's actually just going to go get her firearm that she just got reinstated back? She's going to get it to hand it over to him, has it in her hand, and then that's that officer's excuse to shoot her. Like, you just, not saying that's the case, but you have to definitely...
Well, in that particular one, the only thing you have is eyewitness account, because there is no video.
No body cams.
And I don't know if the shooting took place within the residence.
Yes, it did.
And if it did, then there's also going to be no ring camera from other homes. There's going to be nothing.
And why 3 officers? She's a tiny little blonde gal. Why 3 of them?
I mean, I can see 2, because it's not uncommon for 2 law enforcement officers to ride together in a patrol unit.
And she's already supposedly being picked on and being harassed from everybody in this department.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's just, I don't know.
I guess everything I see in Massachusetts now just makes me kind of roll my eyes.
Well, yeah, all this speculation is going to happen now because of it. It's just, anyway.
Well.
To be continued, because this one we're going to have to look into. It's just getting started.
All right. Well,
so
that's all I got.
Yep, me too.
I
Marissa?
did my job.
All right, well, I guess we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.